you very much for joining us here on the interview series and to share your story with everyone that is interested in getting started online and is also combining the fact that they're living abroad. So please, Chris, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and where you're coming from and what you're currently doing.
Great. Well, Sabine, thanks. I'm excited to be here. I think it's a really interesting project to be involved in. So I am a transplanted American who lives in London, but I have now lived in London longer than I lived in America. Okay. So I was born in California. I was a military daughter, so I moved around quite a bit. And then when I was about 8 or 9, we settled in Las Vegas, and I grew up. I had my teenage years in Las Vegas, and then I went to university in Northern Nevada in Reno.
Okay.
I got a BSc in animal science. I used to train and show horses professionally. Oh. And I minored in psychology while I was at university. So I was going to go on and do a master's in marine biology at San Francisco University. I had my place all secured and everything, but I took a term off. So like I said, I used to train and show horses. I had a horse that was going to be a great dressage horse. I had clinicked with the coach for the German Olympic dressage team, and my horse was the only one he got on to ride because he loved my horse so much.
Wow.
So I thought, I've got this time off. I'm going to go to Europe for a couple of months. I'll go to England and work on my dressage. And, if you're going to learn dressage, come to England, right? So I did, and I came to England and looked for work at dressage stables. It was so badly paid, and they were all so far out of London. And I just thought, if I take one of those jobs, I'm not going to get to do anything while I'm here. And I don't know when I'll ever get back to Europe again. I wanted to travel. I wanted to go to Paris and some other places. And so I gave up on that dream very quickly and took a job at an Irish hotel in London.
Oh, okay. So that's how you first like outside as well of the States, that your first experience living outside of the States. Or while you were young? No. Okay.
Yeah.
No. So was it did you find it like a culture shock? Was it like things that you realized they were not the same, that happening the same way that in your home country?
I think when I first came to London, because there's no language difference, it seems very easy to blend in. And so it probably took me a couple of years before I started to understand it, because I think when you're an English speaker living in an English country that has a lot of the same lifestyle as your home country, it's not about understanding that there's no real big differences. It's about understanding all those little subtle nuances that kind of underlie the current. And I'm still learning. I mean, I've been here 30 years now, over 30 years. And it was only a couple of years ago when somebody told me, actually, if somebody says it would be really nice to meet up, you're never going to see them again. It was just something I never picked up on. I'm like, oh. We're still learning.
Yeah, definitely. So could you tell me 3 things that you love about living in London and something that you miss, like you haven't found while living in the UK?
Yeah, so there's a few things. London for me is like my spiritual home. When I talk about my spirituality, I come from an Eastern perspective about energy, and energy flows through us. Our body needs a ton of energy to make things work, whether it's our heart beating or just the nervous impulses traveling from our fingertips to our brain. It needs electricity to jump the gaps in the nervous system. So there's something about the energy of London that I've really connected to. There's a few other places that I've had that feeling. The first time I ever went to Copenhagen, I felt instantly at home. Greece, I feel really at home in Greece. And it's really interesting because it's a difference to just, I really love this place, to like, no, I can walk the streets and I know where I'm going, because I have a terrible sense of direction. I always get lost. Copenhagen, London, I can walk around the streets and I never get lost. So there's a natural, there's an affinity for it somewhere buried in my body. And and I love the culture. I use London a lot. I'm a big indie rock fan, so I go to a lot of gigs. It's
Good.
been the hardest part of COVID for me is
Yeah.
not the live music.
Mm.
I've watched a lot of live gigs on YouTube, and the theater, because I'm a
Yeah.
theater aficionado. I am a big fan of good quality drama, so I love going to the theater. I go to the art galleries and the museums, you know, the pop-up restaurants, all that kind of stuff. I love it. And COVID had me very worried going into London and seeing the streets empty and the theaters dark, and just wondering, you know, is London going to be able to come back from that was a big concern for me. I think I've had a life here that I would not have had in the States. I've had amazing opportunities. After I worked at the hotel, I left there to work for one of the Gucci showing his horses.
Okay.
And I competed at the Middle East Championships. I competed at the World Championships, at the European Cup. And from there, I went to working for a theatrical literary agency who handled people like Harold Pinter, Dennis Potter, Anthony Minghella. And after that job, I worked for, funnily enough, an American TV production company.
Okay.
I worked in the UK office, and I handled all their international PR outside the US. So I was always on set with A-list stars, both in front and behind the camera. I got to travel to, you know, locations and sets all around Europe.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't imagine ever having those opportunities if I'd stayed in the States. And I guess the third thing for me is just there's a nice pace of life here. You know, when I go back to the States now, it's very obvious to me the consumerism is much more rampant there than it is here, and it really drives the way people live. Last time I was home at Easter time, you know, a friend of mine was going at 6 o'clock in the morning. She was driving 2 hours each way to the bakery that she wanted to get a specific bundt cake from, and going to a Sam's Town, like a big warehouse shop at 11 o'clock at night, because she wanted all this stuff for the Easter baskets for the kids. And I remember, like, she put me in charge of the salad. You know, she's like, I want you to do all the salads. So I had all the stuff, and she's like, I had to go to the grocery store to get salad dressing. And I walked in, and there was like almost a whole aisle of salad dressing. And when I first moved here, I missed that kind of choice.
Yes.
But going back, it's like all of a sudden it became very overwhelming, because we get adjusted to what we live with, don't we?
Definitely.
So what I miss is probably most the outdoor lifestyle. I mean, you can have an outdoor lifestyle here, but like this time of year, it's all about waterproof smellies. You know, I lived in places growing up in both Vegas and Reno. It might surprise people to think this, but you know, Vegas is in the middle of the desert, it's in a bowl surrounded by mountains. So 30-40 minutes up the road, we could go hiking in all the mountains. And Reno is about not even an hour away from Lake Tahoe. So we could go hiking up at Lake Tahoe, we could go canoeing, we could go quad biking. It's that kind of active outdoor lifestyle that I really miss. Oh, and one other thing, the moon, when you see the moon rise in the deserts of Las Vegas and Southern California, it's spectacular. The moon rises from the horizon, and it's massive. I miss that. That's a splendid sight.
Great. So you mentioned a little bit about your kind of years working on kind of around the dressage, around then working for a producer. So how can we do like the jump? How did you ended up now working? Share a little bit about what you're currently doing and how you came to this, and if you had, like, what was the process? Did you have that different attempts to get to what you're doing currently, or did you get some help? Did you sign up to a program? What happened to get to what you're doing currently?
Okay, so I've done a lot of different jobs over my life. I was with a TV production company for 14 years, so that was the longest I was ever with a company. And between that and the literary agency, I was in media for the better part of 20 years.
Okay.
And when the London office shut from the production company and I was made redundant, I'd always had a real key interest in how businesses worked at the micro level.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a look around at what was going on in media, and there'd been a huge shift. You know, when I was doing PR, I was working with, we did these big event miniseries, and because it didn't require a lot of time for people to work on them, we could get a lot of screen talent. So I worked with Glenn Close, Patrick Swayze, Patrick Stewart, you know, big Dennis Hopper, really big stars at the time. So younger people may sit there and go, who? But at the time, they were massive A-list talent. And then there was like a lot of changes in the industry, and reality TV came to the fore. And also a lot of the stigma around TV as a creative work environment, I guess, disappeared. So people that you used to only see on the big screen started doing TV. Started with Kiefer Sutherland in 24, and then Glenn Close followed it quite closely after that with Damages. So people that used to be just on the screen started doing TV, but we had a lot of reality TV programming, and my passion was never for PR. My passion was for the quality of the drama that we made, and I didn't want to go and work in you know, doing publicity for my big fat gypsy wedding or something like that.
Yeah.
Huge at the time. So I decided to follow the interest in the businesses, and I went to work for a buy and build hedge fund. So I was there for a long time, did some work around mergers and acquisitions, integrating new companies that we had purchased. I worked really closely with our CFO, so I understood like the financials around the business. Yes, I spent 8 years there, and then we got sold. I was really heavily involved in the all the due diligence for the sale. And from there, I went into a marketing role with the business that bought us. And after that, for a year or two, they put me in charge of their real estate portfolio globally. So I ran the international real estate portfolio of about 130 offices all outside of Italy, which is where our headquarters were. So I've done loads of different things, and I wanted to leave where I was for various reasons, and I started looking around for an exit strategy. And I had done a coaching course a year or two before that, and I'd loved it, but I also felt like there's 1,000,001 coaches out there, and how do you make your voice heard and all of that. And then I got this promotion at work with the real estate portfolio, and that was too good to walk away from. But about 2 years later, I was ready to leave, and I've always had an interest in the mind-body connection. I've always studied psychology ever since, you know, I started studying psychology in high school. So I started looking around for an exit strategy, and I came across something called rapid transformational therapy,
RTT.
Which is a type of, you know RTT?
I know RTT very well.
Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know it, it's a type of therapy that combines hypnotherapy and a little bit of CBT and NLP. So I trained in that, and I got my qualifications, and COVID hit. I got made redundant. And I took 6 months off, and then I decided what to do, and then I started up my business. So now I work with predominantly women who are going through periods of transformation. And I do this in 2 ways. I help them start, build, and grow a business, or I work with them around guided healing, which is based on the mind and body connection. And that work, I do a lot of mindset work. I do healing and integration of a wounded inner child, losing your generational stories, and also navigating an identity crisis. And I love it. I love it. It's my passion.
Great. So actually that happened all during the pandemic.
Yeah.
That transformation for you, like to be able to start your own business and decide on what you wanted to do. Great. Yeah. So was there anything, you know, obviously the environment now to get started online, to find information about what, you know, in terms of the marketing, what to do, and was it easy for you to get started, to decide? You had your marketing background, so were you able to transfer that into an online business, or did you, I don't know, how was that process for you?
I've never worked for an online business. I mean, let's face it, a lot of online businesses have only really sprung up since COVID. So yeah, it was a learning curve for me. And I worked with a startup coach because all coaches know the value of a good coach.
Good.
I worked with a startup coach. 2 weeks into it, I sold my first program. I hadn't even written the program yet. And I wrote a program that I thought people needed to know. And I'd done some market research around it and, still decided I knew better. And the first program, I sold it before I'd even written it, and then crickets, absolute crickets. So it was a real learning curve for me to kind of take that step back and kind of pivot and understand, what am I doing that people actually don't want, and what do they want? So yeah, I think that the great thing about the online is it just opens us up to so many people. I've worked with clients in the States, I've worked with clients in Australia, in Europe. It's fantastic. But the downside to that is there's so much noise. And because I work a lot with women who are just starting businesses, money's tight for them. And instead of coming and investing in a coach that will help them not just learn something, but learn how to apply it to their own business, there's so much free stuff out on the internet that they lose hours and hours and hours consuming that free material, masterclasses and challenges and downloading freebies and getting onto newsletters. And it's a large waste of time. It's a big time suck. And I'm not saying that there's not good stuff out there, because there is some really good stuff out there. Some people do give away things with a lot of value. But anything that's free is 99.9% of the time, it's there to sell something. And therefore it's a tease to get you excited about something. And then all the real information comes after you've bought it. So I think the whole kind of online business industry has been really interesting to watch. Like I said, it allows me to work with people all around the world, but I think sometimes it creates so much noise that it can be really difficult for people when they're starting a business.
Yeah, definitely. So what would be an advice, that's something that either you give to your clients or what you can share now of, how to get started, or what should they do, or where should they put their focus on?
So there's some core foundational work that you need to do. And I'm really big about foundations. For me, I think if you want to have a successful business, you need to treat it like a business, even if you're a one-person band and, you might have fairly modest, concepts around the amount of money that you want to earn. Maybe it's a part-time thing for you, but you still need to treat it like a business, and you need to set those foundations. So my new program that I rewrote last year, that is for women just starting out, covers the things that you need to learn when you're first starting. And it's your biggest concerns. What are you selling? Who are you selling it to? How do you communicate with them? How do you generate leads? And how do you sell to them? And so it's getting clarity around that. The biggest piece is understanding what you bring to the table as a business owner, and being 100% crystal clear on who your ideal client is, because that goes across everything. If you know who your ideal client is, you know what you're selling them, you know what the results are that they're getting, you know how to market to them. I know everybody gets really kind of like this whenever we talk about niching, and business coaches will always talk about niching. Niching is not really about who you serve, it's about who you market to. It's a marketing tool. You're going to know this.
I totally agree, because for me the key piece is the buyer's profile, the kind of the avatar, whatever the name that you put it. But yeah, creating that, what is the problem you're solving, and who are you solving, like who's your audience, but just really focusing on one profile. It's an exercise I love doing, and it goes into like 4 or 5 pages of brainstorming ideas and finding preparing your messaging for all your future programs and for everything that you do. It's really, I use it as the backbone of the content that's going to be created later on, the emails that are going to be sent out, the visuals that are going to be created for social media, is really starting from the buyer, the client profile. So I totally agree that that's a very, very important part of setting up.
So something else I just want to bring up because of the
Yeah.
times that we're living in right now with everything that's going on in Ukraine. All my clients this week have been coming to me and saying, how do I market myself in these times? And it's something I've struggled with. I see a lot of people struggling with it online. And the advice that I've given them is about going back to those foundations. So whatever your business is, if you've got your foundations right, it's your foundations work as an anchor in times of turmoil, in times of growth, whenever you have to make a difficult decision. So, you need to do things like give your business its an identity, set its values, set a mission and vision statement, because those will guide you through every step and every decision that you make with regards to your business. And in times like this, when we're struggling with how do I market myself, we go back to those values, mission, and vision in order to help us make that decision.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Great advice. Well, where can we find you online, Chris?
Yep. So my website is www.transformwithchrism.com. All my social media links are there. I'm on Facebook. I run a Facebook group on there called the Unstoppable Woman Tribe, because I'm all about creating legacy. So we talk a lot about legacy and then business and personal stuff as well, around the healing work in the group. And I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn, of course.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll post all the links in the description of the video and as well on the blog, so that everyone that's listening to this or watching the video can go and check you out and check out your website and join your group to get to know a bit more about what you do and how you can help them. Thank you very much, Chris, for your time and for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me. See you later.
See you.